Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles. We're in Acts chapter 28. Paul is in Rome. After a perilous sea voyage, he has now arrived in the capital city to stand trial before Caesar. Of course, he had appealed to Caesar. We discover that he's allowed to stay in a home under house arrest with simply a soldier there to guard him. He's not allowed to roam freely, of course, but he is allowed to receive guests and to be attended to by his friends. And so he waits. Now, what is the next step in his trial? Paul is there, but he has to wait for his accusers to arrive, and they also must come from Jerusalem, from the Sanhedrin. You will recall that when Paul was standing before the Roman governor, Felix and Festus, he had the accusers come up to Caesarea to present their charges. Well, now that he's appealed to Rome, the accusers must come to Rome. So while they're waiting for a delegation to arrive from the Sanhedrin to bring charges against Paul, Paul simply waits. But he's not idle. He has things he wants to do. Now, you'll recall that whenever Paul entered a new city on his missionary journeys, he would always start at the synagogue with the Jewish community. He does that in Rome as well. He can't go to them, but he can invite them to come to him. And that's exactly what he does. So we start reading at verse 17. Now, 3 days later, this is 3 days after he arrived in Rome and has found a home to stay in. He has his guard. 3 days later, he calls together the local Jewish leaders. He calls from the elders of the synagogues in Rome to come to him. When they had assembled, Paul said to them, "My brothers, I have done nothing against our people or against the customs of our ancestors. Nonetheless, I was arrested in Jerusalem and I was handed over to the Romans." Now, Paul immediately begins by telling them that though he's been accused by the Sanhedrin, he has no cause against his people or against the practice of Judaism. He makes that clear. He says, they examined me, that is the Romans. They wanted to release me because I was not guilty of any crime. But the Jews objected, so I was compelled to make an appeal to Caesar. So he's letting them know I only appealed to Caesar because I felt like I had to. I certainly don't intend to bring any charges against my own people. But I've asked to see you, to talk with you, for it is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound with this chain. That makes it clear to them it's because of his belief in Jesus that these charges have been made against him. His belief in Jesus has brought him to this place. Now notice he says, this is the hope of Israel. It's always Paul's understanding, his opinion, his firm conviction that faith in Jesus is the fulfillment of everything in the Old Testament. It is truly the hope of Israel that finds its fulfillment in Jesus. And he wants to explain that to the leaders of the Jewish synagogues, the Jewish community in Rome. Now they reply, "We've not received any letters from Judea concerning you. None of our people have come from there with any reports about you. But we would like to hear your views, for we know that everywhere people are talking against this sect." Now they claim they have heard nothing about these charges against Paul. They know nothing about his case. But they say, "We are interested in hearing from you because everywhere this sect," that's Christianity, "is being spoken against. We would like to hear what you have to say about it." So they arranged to meet Paul on a certain day, and they came in even larger numbers to the house where he was staying. From morning to evening, he witnessed to them. He explained about the kingdom of God, about the law of Moses and the prophets. He tried to persuade them about Jesus. So in other words, he took a day trying to explain to them how he understood the gospel, how he had met Jesus. I'm sure he gave his testimony about that meeting on the Damascus Road. I'm sure he told them how he had come from being a persecutor of Christians to a leader of Christians. He explains to them how he knows and believes that in Jesus, all of the Old Testament is fulfilled. They listened to him. Some were convinced by what he said, but others would not believe. Same reaction he always had in every synagogue he went to. Some believed, some did not. They disagreed among themselves, and they began to leave after Paul made a final statement. He quotes from Isaiah the prophet. He says, Isaiah said, "You'll be ever hearing and ever understanding. you'll be ever seeing but never perceiving, for your heart has become calloused. You don't hear with your ears, you've closed your eyes. He quotes from Isaiah, just as Jesus had once done, about how people refuse to believe. And then Paul concludes by saying, therefore I want you to know, God's salvation has been sent to the Gentiles. They will listen. They will listen. So Paul has the same reaction from the Jewish synagogue in Rome that he had everywhere he had ever been. Some believed, some do not. And he says, I've given you the gospel, but I'm going to have to give it now to the Gentiles, for it is also for them as well as for us. For the good news in Jesus is for Jews and for Gentiles. So even in Rome, even a prisoner awaiting trial, Paul is still giving the gospel of Jesus, first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. He's given it to everyone who will hear. For everyone who hears and believes is saved through that faith in Jesus. Hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles. And in our next session, we will wrap up our study of this look at the book of Acts. But I'll see you then in our next session. Have a great day.